Good morning. Welcome to Garden America. We are back in the saddle, back in the studio, broadcasting live from the iHeartMedia and Entertainment World Domination headquarters located right here in San Diego. I'm Brian Main, along with John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox. Hope you had a good week. Weather seems to be cooling off just a bit here in Southern California, perhaps a few hot pockets where you are, but we are rested and ready and glad to be in studio. John, do you have your comments up and the correct show?
No, I don't. I have the correct show, but I can't see any comments yet.
Okay, well, John, you can work on that. Tiger's
when did
working
Hot
on...
Pockets start sponsoring the show, by the way?
Well, what I do is I'm starting to make mention of different, people,
just to try to get more advertising.
Products,
great idea.
And hopefully that'll be a cue to somebody to say, hey, I want to advertise on your show. Yeah, if you want to advertise with us, just contact John Begnasco.
Yeah, there you go.
John is full-time sales up in that Palacious estate in Fallbrook.
No, actually, Tiger's in charge of all that now.
Yeah, just send me a message.
Send Tiger a message. Anyway, Tiger, how was your week?
It was a good week, busy week, interesting week in the sense of warm, cool, Santa Ana winds. Did you feel that?
Yeah, I came home and a lot of my plants were blown over.
Yeah, I was just sitting there in the evening and it was just a warm wind blowing. And
How hot did you get?
In the 90s.
Really?
Yeah, it was hot.
Yeah.
You know, our friend Joel, who lives in Rancho Santa Fe, called me, I think Thursday, and he said it was 98 here.
Wow.
And he said, so I figure you were 105, and we actually, the hottest we got was 93.
Wow.
So that's one of the rare times that the coastal areas are hotter than inland.
Right.
But, John, you say now we got a little break in the action. Now it's going to cool off for a period of time, or do we have more hot weather coming?
For the foreseeable future.
Yep.
So this coming week's going to be a good week for gardening. A great week to get the roses ready for the upcoming rose show and auction.
Which is next weekend, Saturday, Sunday, live auction on Sunday.
Right. Sponsored by Mission Hills Nursery this year.
Polite golf applause.
Yeah.
That's right. Go over to Mission Hills this weekend and buy something and just say, we really appreciate everything you do.
Maybe Tiger will sign an autograph or two if you catch him at the nursery.
Now, next Sunday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, is going to be actress Marion Ross' birthday. Mm-hmm. And Berling Leong has named a new rose after her. And we're going to celebrate her birthday at the auction.
And she'll be arriving, we think, around 1:30?
Well, I would say sometime between 12 and 1:30.
Okay.
So we're not sure exactly when. But we're going to have a birthday cake. The public's invited. There's no charge. Cool. It'll be a fun time. And there's a rose show.
Oh, yeah, by the way, there's a rose show.
Yeah.
And auction.
Yeah, the rose show is what we normally don't have.
Right.
But you're always there for the auction. You're the auctioneer. But
Tiger's going to help out this year.
Yeah, it's going to. I'm looking forward to it. I can hardly contain myself.
So that's next weekend, obviously. For those in San Diego, it's in Oceanside.
No, it's a 2-day event.
Mm-hmm.
The first day is the rose show and auction and a display by San Diego artist Nancy Plank. Is going to have about 30 roses in her exhibition, and they'll be available for sale. And also there's 3 lectures by prominent rosarians that day. So if you want to learn a little bit about roses, come on by. All this is free, even food. How about that?
Look at
turkey roll-ups.
So, I'm trying to give Brian a phone number.
We can figure this out during the break.
All right.
It's fine.
How many roses are in bloom that you have for the auction right now? Because you have them all pulled and ready to go, right?
They're getting ready to go, but don't forget, we just went through searing temperatures.
Yeah.
So my hope is that the buds that hadn't opened yet will open for the auction.
Okay.
This is a bad time of year for roses.
Oh, yeah.
Are there going to be any roses in the auction where you can say, we just experienced hot Santa Ana winds, but this rose here is the rose you want for this kind of climate or weather?
Well, you can take a look at the roses, and if
you'll
they
be able
look
to
good,
tell.
they just came through.
Right. This charcoal briquette here cannot tolerate hot, dry Santa Ana winds. This rose with leaves and a flower can.
One of the roses being offered will be the first time it's ever been offered in the United States.
What?
Yep. It's originally from Italy, I think. It's called Villa Borghese. And from the Borghese, I think, is that
Part of the
from
Borghese family.
I was thinking, is that the Borgias? I don't know.
Is that a cheese?
I've been to the Villa Borghese in Italy, which was, great gardens out there too. But anyway, that'll be the only one offered. And then, and Tiger and I are both interested in the rose that's a cross between the Kiffsgate rose and Joseph's Coat.
Yeah.
I've never seen that
I'm excited
rose.
about that one.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna
it's
break
going to
my
be fun.
piggy bank.
A lot of
Piggy penny
miniature
bank, that
roses
makes sense.
too. If you are only growing or only have room for some containers, you don't have room to plant roses in the ground. A lot of miniatures, a lot of rare miniatures.
So last week to submit your bids online, right? Up until if you're listening live,
I
you
think
have until what day to
Friday,
to submit your bids.
right?
If you're listening via the radio, sorry, you
Right,
lost
because
your chance.
this is last week's show for those on
Yeah.
Biz Talk Radio.
But
If you are listening on the radio, you waited too long. But if you send me an email
ooh,
to john@gardenamerica.com, I will see that your bids get placed
okay,
on Sunday.
You don't have to do that.
I know I don't have to.
that's
but
very nice.
How
That's
about
the kind of guy I am.
Yeah.
And then
You're one of those good garden guys.
if you want to see the itinerary for what's going on, go to ccrsauction.com, and also there's a list of all the roses in the auction. And very easy to find out about each one because there's a link from each rose to help me find roses. So you
Yeah.
can click back and forth and
And if you want to, just so if you're not in the San Diego area, you do ship roses for people
all over the country.
in the United States.
Yeah.
In the continental United States,
Right.
right?
Is that the
So-
48 contiguous, or do you include Alaska and Hawaii?
Well, we haven't had any bids from Alaska and Hawaii, and I don't think we could ship to Hawaii.
I don't think you can ship
But-
to
Yeah,
Hawaii.
because there's too many
But I think we could
restrictions.
send to Alaska.
Yeah. But if you live in the continental U.S. and you want one of these rare, unique, endangered roses, submit your bids, ccrsauction.com. Yeah.
And you know what? While we do have roses that go up for, as much as $300 a piece in the auction.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some that go for $8.
Yep.
And if you go online, the nice thing about going online is you can see the current bid on each rose, so it'll give you an idea what to bid.
And
But
put your
there's
max
roses
bid.
up there that are under $10.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes we start the bidding in the live auction, $5.
50 cents, you always try and
$2.50.
tell you that's too low.
Yeah, but see, it's fun then because we can increase the bidding.
Then he's
rapidly.
up there.
50 cents. Heck yeah, 50 cents. Anybody want to go 55?
I was gonna say then he's up there for 3 hours, getting from 50 cents to 300.
Do I hear
John, we're going to move
75?
this along this year. Move it along.
Well, there's only 20 for
20 roses.
For you to auction in the live auction.
Right.
There's 100 roses in the silent auction.
Okay, we need the quote of the week here as we continue with our first segment of the weekend. Welcome to Garden America, those on Biz Talk Radio. Those on Facebook Live, we appreciate you tuning in. And again, those on Biz Talk Radio, this is last week's show. If you want to watch us and hear us live, go to our Facebook page, Garden America Radio Show, and you can interact, comments, questions, so on and so forth. John?
Speaking of roses, the quote is from Rose G. Kingsley.
Rose Kingsley.
Right. But she said, in the garden, autumn is indeed the crowning glory of the year, bringing us the fruition of months of thought and care and toil. And at no season, save perhaps daffodil time, do we get such a superb color effect as from August to November. She was an English garden writer.
Around what era?
Early 20th century.
Wow. Way back then.
You remember those days.
We mentioned last week how John took Latin in the last century. Oh, guys, got about a minute to go to the first break. What other business do we need to move out of the way?
I was going to bring in today, and I didn't because I brought cookies instead.
Oh, yeah.
Some
Happy
of my
late birthday to John.
birthday cookies.
Happy belated birthday
But I was
last week, John.
going to bring in two mums. One was the box store type mum that blooms in September and then burns. And I was going to show you what that looks like compared to the fall mums that we talked about that are better in California because they don't bloom till November, late October, November. And this one still has buds all over it that haven't opened up yet, so they didn't get burned during the heat last week.
We're going to take a break. It is our first break of the show. Welcome to Garden America, Facebook Live, and those on Biz Talk Radio. When we return, we'll have our guest ready to go. Tiger will be handling that interview as always. And if you have any questions, comments, be sure to interject right there on our Facebook page. Welcome to Garden America, taking a break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Do stay with us. Okay, welcome back to the show. We do hope you enjoyed that break as we continue on your Saturday morning or maybe Saturday afternoon, depending upon how you do receive us and listen to us and watch us every weekend, digital streaming, our YouTube page, YouTube channel, Garden America Radio Show. With that in mind, we get all the first segment business out of the way. So with that in mind, I'm going to toss to Tiger to bring on Leslie, our guest Tiger, and here we go for yet another Garden America show.
We have Leslie Halleck this morning joining us from Halleck Horticulture. She's an author of many books involved with the gardening industry. Her new book this year, Tiny Plants, is fresh off the presses now. And to share it with us, she's joining us this morning. Leslie, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How's it going?
Great. Thank you for joining us this morning. Look forward to chatting with you about your new book. But can you start off by telling us a little bit about your background?
Oh, that's a long story, so I'm going to try to keep it tiny. And again, our topic of tiny plants. I am a lifelong lover of gardening and plants. I grew up with family members and adopted grandmothers. As an Army brat, we moved all around, so I just sort of found grandmas wherever we moved, and they all happened to garden, and so that seed was planted pretty early for me. But sort of halfway through college as an art major, I decided to make the shift to botany. So I shifted over to botany, ended up with a master's in horticulture, and have spent the last 30-plus years working across many segments of the industry, from plant research to public gardens, landscaping, retail, and then for the last 10 years, working independently as a consultant, both for businesses in the green industry and then also educating and teaching the home gardeners and growers through my books and teaching. I teach horticulture for UCLA Extension as well. So, yeah, I mean, I've had a long, varied, and fun career in the plant world, and I love communicating with it to home growers and home gardeners.
And this new book, Tiny Plants, obviously hits so many people close to home, because I think that we're all finding, our homes are getting smaller. A lot of people are living in more urban environments where they don't have the yards, the acreages that we used to have. And, the Tiny Plants isn't just so much about, little, fairy gardens or little miniature kind of gardens, but actually gardening in confined areas, right?
Yeah, so this is not a fairy gardening book, right? I am a plant nerd. Obviously, as a horticulturist, I'm an avid outdoor gardener, and I have grown and do grow just about anything. I love my outdoor garden, but as many people do, I caught the plant bug with indoor plants. Right, because as a late teenager, college student, I didn't have my own yard, and so as many people do, you start collecting houseplants, right? That's how the gardening bug starts for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of the gateway drug, as we like to call it, houseplants into gardening, right? I've never lost that particular addiction. Even being a really intensive outdoor gardener, I've always maintained a love for my indoor plants and collecting. That waxes and wanes. Our hobbies kind of change and grow, but I spent many years keeping poison dart frogs. So I built vivariums, which vivariums are a little different from terrariums in that you need to grow plants that work with the animal's natural environment. And so, that took me down a really deep dive into really miniature specimens. And then also, if you read the intro to my book, Tiny Plants, you'll read a story that I wrote about my first encounter with a really miniature orchid when I was doing research in the rainforest in Puerto Rico. And it just sort of, I've always maintained that love of growing indoors. And I think even those of us that may have bigger homes or bigger spaces, I think the pandemic over the last few years, really obviously kept a lot of people indoors, but it drove people to nature they could maintain, indoors, or like you said, in apartments, smaller spaces where you don't have room to garden outside, but you still want to cultivate plants and grow. So, indoor growing and gardening to me is really important because it's good for your mind. It's good for your health. It's a really fun way to be able to sort of nurture things, right? Even if you have a really tiny space. And I kind of took it to an extreme with this book. I am a plant collector, right? So again, not a fairy gardening book. This is about really cool individual species of plants that, if you've just got a windowsill or a few, square feet of space, you can collect hundreds of plant species. So if you're a nerd, if you're a plant nerd and you love collecting, I talk about ways you can do that, even if you have a really, really tiny space indoors.
Now that's funny. You mentioned the poison dart frog and the orchid, because that is one question that I usually ask authors, especially in gardening books, because obviously you've written this book because you connected in somehow, but sometimes the books don't always show where the author connected with whatever book they're writing. It could be roses, could be succulents, could be tiny plants.
Right.
Your book is a lot of little connections that you've made, and you kind of share them with everyone. So it's really an insight of kind of like what you just talked about, your collecting passion and how that's kind of, guided you through the years. And it's a lot of fun to kind of actually hear from, like, this is firsthand knowledge. You're not just writing a guidebook. This is your life and your firsthand knowledge on this stuff. It's a pretty cool book.
Oh yeah. Thanks for saying that. I'm pointing that out. I have sort of a philosophy about teaching and my books and giving talks. I do a lot of speaking. I feel like, you write about what you know, right? Mm-hmm. You have to really know. You have to have tangible experience with it. And, I have a passion for these things. So in all of my books, I really try to relate my person-plant connection, because I think that makes it much more relatable for the student and the reader to understand why. Why is someone going to do this, or where did the interest come from? And sort of all of the books that I've written and things I teach about, they're all personal passions. So, whether it's intentional or not, a part of me always bleeds into the work. There's always stories. There's reasons why I think something is cool and why I'm putting it in the book and showing it to you or teaching you how to grow it. And so, I always like to remind, my readers and students, like, hey, I might be a professional horticulturist, but I am a hardcore just plant lover, plant nerd, just like you. And here are the things that I get excited about and why I get excited about them. So that's important to me, that person-plant connection, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of neat, you're a little bit of your, the books. You have the tiny plants, plant parenting, and then planting with indoor lights. They all kind of lead
gardening under lights.
Gardening
Yes,
with indoor lights, and it all kind of like work together in so many different ways. Hey, we're going to have to take a quick break right now. When we get back, we'll continue chatting with Leslie Halleck about tiny plants. When we get back, Leslie, I want to talk about maybe some of the inner details of the book. If you can give us some little things that you can pop out of the book and bring to our listeners.
All right, do stay with us, of course. As Tiger mentioned, back with Leslie after this break. These messages on Biz Talk Radio. Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox. Welcome to the weekend. Welcome to Garden America. Okay, we have returned from the break. Thank you for tuning in. This is last week's show. If you're tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, of course, Facebook Live. That's what the name says, live. We are live on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. The show is Garden America. Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox. We continue. We're talking tiny this morning. Tiger with Leslie. Tiny Tiger Leslie.
Yeah, we're talking with Leslie this morning about her new book, Tiny Plants. And before the break, I had mentioned if you can give us some, specific plant types, some specific details about tiny plants. And we do have a question that did come through our Facebook feed asking for specific types of plants. But before you start with that, Leslie, I mean, the cover of the book is just such a great cover for this topic because it's a bunch, I don't know, maybe 20 little pots, and some of them look like teapots, teacups, and, all kinds of little plants. And like you mentioned, on a windowsill, you can have hundreds of these kinds of plants because they don't take up a lot of room. This isn't a pothos that's 8 feet long, hanging tendrils down from the balcony. This isn't a fiddly fig with, leaves the size of your, head. These are little plants that take up a little bit of room, but have such a big impact. So what are some of the ones that stand out, specific plants that stand out in your mind, Leslie?
Yeah, great point about the big plants. I'll just say very quickly, a lot of new houseplant keepers, plant parents get really, get really into their collections, and then they don't realize how large many of the popular houseplants get. And they very quickly run out of window space, right? So one of the reasons I wrote this book was to show you, hey, you can keep collecting. if you have your 10 popular big houseplants and they've taken up space, this is a great way to keep collecting. Those images on the front of the book, those pots are most of those are 1-inch pots, to give you an idea of scale. So 1 inch in diameter, so very tiny. So if you dive into the book, you'll see that I have it divided into some very specific sections. I give you a little bit of botany and history of tiny plants. Of course, I give you a really good maintenance section in Chapter 2 of how to care for them. And then you'll see Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 are broken out into what I call tiny windowsill plants, which are teeny tiny plants that you can grow successfully without high humidity, because you will find a lot of tiny tropicals need high humidity. Chapter 4 is going to go into tiny plants under glass. Those are going to be the plants that need high humidity. So I tried to make it really simple in how I broke that out. Of course, there are tons of tiny succulents and cacti, which are really popular. You will see in the book, I talk about how grow lighting is really imperative to keeping those happy. But there's some really cool, very tiny ferns that you can actually grow out on the windowsill. There's some really cool carnivorous plants like bladderwort that you can just grow in a tiny teacup out on the windowsill, along with pygmy sundews, which you don't have to keep under glass, which are one of my favorites. So I try to show you lots of really cool gesneriads as well. So gesneriads being things like begonias and African violets. Syningias are my favorite. Teeny tiny micro syningias. I love them. So if you like blooming tiny plants, gesneriads are the way to go. Begonias. There's just tons of really cool little plants to choose from.
That was my first fascination with tiny plants, like when I was a kid, which was a long, long time ago. But Syningia pusilla was
really?
Yes.
a little tiny flowering plant.
Yeah. And it's funny.
You'll see it, like if you look at page 47 in the maintenance section. I show there's there's a pair of pruners, and you can see an itty bitty tiny Syningia that's actually a little hybrid, just slightly bigger than Priscilla. But I'm obsessed. I have a particular obsession with the micro Syningias because they're so easy to grow, just thrown in a little glass jar, which you'll see. That's a technique I show you throughout the book, which is different from terrarium growing. About how you can keep these little tiny potted specimens inside really small glass jars, and they become some of your lowest maintenance houseplants.
Now, let me ask you this, because John and I both follow a group on Facebook called, was it Rare?
Really rare plants.
Really rare plants. And in, when I'm following along with that Facebook group, a lot of these really rare plants are tiny plants. And I think that's probably why they're really rare, is because nobody notices they're there, and they're fit into a little crack somewhere. And next thing you know, it's got one leaf and one flower, and it's absolutely amazing and
They're
stunning.
not really rare. It's just nobody can see them.
Yeah. So do you have any tips for people that are trying to find these? Because, some of these plants you mentioned, they're not exactly ones that we just find at everyday nurseries, right?
Well, this is not a book about everyday plants. And so I actually write in the book that, look, you're going to have to do some hunting. You're going to have to get out a microscope, little lens, and do some hunting for these tiny plants. But in my opinion, that's part of the fun of collecting, right? Is really having to hunt. I have done a lot of that work for you, though. And if you turn to the back of the book, page 170, there's a page called Supply Sources. And I've outlined many of my favorite online vendors, right? So these are for no matter where you are, you can order from them, of teeny tiny itty bitty houseplants and many of the rare plants. Just be aware, oftentimes there's very, very limited availability. So one of these growers may have 3 or 4 specimens. And so get on their list to notify you when they're back in stock. That's a really handy tool. I will admit, maybe just happened to place an order this morning on Black Jungle Terrarium Supply of some teeny tinies, because they have some of the cool little microferns that I talk about in the book. They have them in stock right now, and I am addicted. I'm not going to lie, but hunting for them, I recommend you kind of go off the beaten path for buying houseplants and look in the world of vivarium suppliers. You're going to find a lot of these micro species through them.
Got it. And it's funny, when you're looking for these plants, you do find a whole nother world out there, like you just mentioned, because I think a lot of the people, that are initially seeing this, tiny plants, and there are people that frequent garden centers and nurseries, right. And, that's fine. And there's a whole other world of these exotic plants that there are actually probably local sources by you, and you had no clue they existed, right?
Correct. And you'll find that specifically, again, with a lot of the really tiny aeroids, which a lot of people don't even really know exist. Teeny tiny philodendrons, teeny tiny, arrowhead plants, all of these little specimens. You're not gonna find those at the garden center. Usually at a typical garden center, you will find a small array of small succulents and cacti, right? You might find a couple of these available. So for the most part, you're going to discover a whole different world of plant vendors and species when you start going the route of vivarium. Even if you're not buying critters, right? You're not buying animals. You're just buying these for your windowsill or to put under glass. These vivarium suppliers are really open up a whole new world of plant species for you.
Instead of Amazon packages on Leslie's doorstep, it's a bunch of
her stuff really comes from the Amazon.
It's actually, I won't tell you how ridiculous it is. I actually have them all shipped to my business mailbox. That way I can pretend like I have had these forever. These are I've had them forever. So, I sneak a lot of plants into my house.
It's a bunch of double-wrapped duct tape boxes with holes in the side, a little bit of little fluid.
Tiny. So I can sneak them in my bag, right? Like you can get in a little tiny box, you can get 20 little plant specimens in there. So who knows what I'm buying, right? Perfect.
I can picture this little matchbox coming in the mail with a whole garden inside of it.
Right.
Brian,
I
you
know. Well, a lot of times you're buying a piece, right? So sometimes these rare specimens, you're getting a cutting.
Yeah.
You're not even necessarily getting a rooted potted plant. So you get little tiny plastic bags with some sphagnum moss and a little section of roots. So yes, you could get an envelope with 20 different specimens in it. So it's very convenient.
Yeah.
If you have a plant addiction you need to feed on the down low.
this sounds like something you would be interested in, Brian, because you've done
Yeah.
vivariums before, right?
And
You've
you
done
have a
the
small
lizards.
garden.
How about setting up one with poison tree frogs?
I'd love that.
Yeah.
Poison dart frogs, I guess I should
And
say.
that really
Yeah.
caught our attention when Leslie mentioned that, the
Yeah.
poison dart frog.
You know what? That's,
Can you lick those to get high? Is that what that is, John?
Well, you can do that to get dead if you want.
All
One
right.
way of doing that.
There's your choice right there.
I don't know if Dana's listening to the show right now, but I think that'd be a great Christmas surprise for her.
Yeah.
It's a poison dart frog,
There
a
you
little
go.
vivarium.
Here, love you.
I have to say, it was a great way to keep my husband on his toes for many years.
Oh.
Because usually, I kept about 40 to 50 different individuals of different species, so I had lots of different vivariums going. So yeah, it keeps everybody in the house on their toes.
Hey, we're going to have to take another break, Leslie. When we get back, we'll finish chatting with Leslie Halleck about her new plant, Tiny Books, and making sure that none of those poison dart frogs are running around the
That was
house.
her new book, Tiny Plants.
What did I say?
You said her new plants, tiny book.
Good one. Yeah.
Well, we
Thank you.
understand. We know where we're going with this. Leslie, hold on. We're going to take a break. Thank you so much for tuning in. This break specifically for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. We're going to be back with Facebook Live and Biz Talk Radio after these messages on, where else? Biz Talk Radio.
I have a question, too.
Okay, we have returned from our Biz Talk Radio break, a shorter break, much shorter on Facebook Live. As we continue, and again, the news coming up top of the hour for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. We come back, hour number 2, at 6 minutes after Tiger. That is Biz Talk Radio. For the rest of you on Facebook Live, questions, comments, always welcomed.
Hey, and we're chatting with Leslie Halleck about her new book, Tiny Plants. And John, you said we had a question come across, right?
Well,
Sure.
Carla in Huntington Beach wants you to put on your spelling bee hat and
geez.
let her know how to spell Sinningia.
Sinnigia.
That's correct.
I have a problem. I have a terrible time spelling out loud. I'm such a visual person. I usually have to write that down. So I'm really surprised if I got that right.
You did get it right.
Now, Carla had that right except -1 N. John, is that right?
Yeah. There's
Well,
two
she
N's.
also put E. It's
Right.
Sinningia.
There you go. Yeah. I can't spell out loud. So. But it's all there. It's all there in the book, and everything, all the plants in the book. I give you the correct binomial, the Latin name, because for the most part, common names can be terribly unreliable when it comes to many of these, more uncommon or hard to find species. I give you common names too, but if you're shopping for them, it's best to use the Latin name. In every plant description I give you in the book, I also give you a pretty healthy list of additional species that you can grow pretty much the same way, because there was no way that I could fit all of the different species I wanted to talk about in the book with photos, because, the publisher gives you a set amount of space and a certain number of pages, and you got to squeeze everything into it. So
Yeah.
you have lots and lots of plants to shop for with their correct binomial Latin names, all right there for you in the book.
That just leaves you opening for volume 2, Tiny
Yeah,
Plants, right there,
Oh,
Leslie.
And 3 and 4 and 5.
Which brings me to my next comment is we did mention your other books, Plant Parenting, and it was
Gardening Under Light.
Gardening Under Light. And again, kind of this kind of theme of indoor plants, keeping plants, collecting plants. I did post your website for people to learn how to get the book, learn more about you as well. So lots of good information on Leslie's website, blog postings and other things like that. So, if you're looking for more info from Leslie or looking at how to get the book, that's a great place to go.
By the way, Gina in Idaho comments that this is an awesome way to garden through the winter.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you're
Yeah,
not
well,
in...
and it's interesting interesting because, again, as an avid outdoor gardener, it's funny that, my publishers really, really asked me to focus on really what ended up being more indoor, gardening spaces, much because of that was the focus of my master's degree. But yes, if you're in a climate with lengthy winters, it can be really sad and frustrating to have to wait so long to get your hands back out in the dirt and play with your plants. And so being able to grow indoors all the way through the winter is really fun.
Yeah. So lots of great information. Leslie, any more information you want to share with us? Any appearances, new book releases coming out soon, anything like that?
I am taking a break from book writing at the moment. I put out 3 books in 4 years, so it was a lot of work. So we're going into fall, like the commenter stated. So if you are interested in growing indoors or propagating or starting seeds, my book Plant Parenting is all about propagation 101. So if you're doing any propagation, and then of course if you really want to figure out grow lighting, gardening under lights works for that. All 3 books kind of work well together.
Yeah.
And if you go to my website, I've got some special pricing there if you want signed books, that you can get all 3 of them together, or of course you can go to Amazon and get them all that way too.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Have a great weekend, and good luck with your addiction.
Yeah.
Keep fitting him in. Bye-bye.
Okay, there she goes. You know what? That sparked a lot of interest. Tiny.
Yeah.
Tiny
And,
plants.
it's funny because, John mentioned it, Brian, but for you, this would be perfect because you have
he set these kinds of things up before, but yours had been more, you had snakes too, right?
Snakes, let's see.
But they end up being more dry areas, right?
Dry, hot,
Dry,
deserty, some
right.
humidity.
Yeah. But you could go with the amphibians, and I think that
a
would be
bearded
a lot of
dragon.
fun.
I'm thinking bearded dragon now.
That's dry, though, right? Those ones?
Very dry, yeah.
Yeah.
Very dry.
What about a Komodo dragon?
I don't
Well,
think
as
that
long
works
as it
on the
doesn't turn on
tiny
you.
plant.
Because they do
Tiny.
eat people. They will. They've got a bite.
They'll eat anything.
Yeah.
And they're big.
Yeah, I don't think they are big, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to fit.
We'll
But
figure something out.
Yeah, but I really like the vivarium idea. You could have, you don't have to have poison dart frogs, but little tree frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
be cute.
What's the fun in that? It's funny. My friends have a gecko.
Oh, yeah.
They have 2 little boys, and they have this gecko. And I will say they've had this gecko for a series of years now.
Well, they're taking good care of it. Good for them.
They are. They really are. But through the years, there's been weeks at a time where the gecko has gone missing in the house, and all of a sudden one day they'll be like, "Oh, there he is."
And obviously
Just-
finding plenty to eat.
this is a very healthy gecko.
They can survive. That same with snakes too. A lot of snakes that I know that there are snake rescues where they find these snakes in these houses, and there's
The toilet usually, right?
well, I mean people that have had them and just abandon them.
Yeah.
And they find them a year later and they're still fine. They haven't eaten for a long time, but they can go many months
That's
without
amazing,
food.
right? We have
You know?
this concept that 3 meals a day
No.
or you die.
Snake maybe once a week for a lot of them, once a month for the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, about Florida, how the pythons have gotten loose.
Oh yeah, when people
the Everglades,
when people
right?
just
The
let them
Everglades.
go. When
Yeah.
people
Oh yeah,
just let
and
them go.
it's wreaking havoc on the environment because they don't belong there.
Don't they have lakes that they've let piranhas in also?
Oh, I didn't hear
Florida?
about that. Really?
I think so.
There's
I
not
could
a-
be wrong.
Florida's
That's
become a
scary,
very.
scary place.
I was gonna say Florida's becoming a very fun place, isn't it?
Yeah.
When I went, I think I've told this story before, but when I went to Michigan State University, we had an aquarium in our room in the dorm, and I had African cichlids in there. And I forget what these black and white striped ones were, but some kind of cichlid. And when I went, after the semester was over and I went to go home, I didn't know what to do with these fish. So,
Dumped them in Lake Michigan.
well, at this point, they were the last 2 left. So there was a fountain in front of one of the buildings, a huge thing with ponds and water lilies and stuff. And I just dumped them in there. And then came back in the fall. And after the first freeze, there were hundreds of fish in
Oh,
that
they
pond.
populated.
Yeah, a lot.
They did well.
Yeah.
Hey, on that note, we're going to take a break. We've got news coming up for those on Biz Talk Radio. And then we return at right around 6 minutes after. Do stay with us. Happy weekend. Happy whenever you're listening to us. This is Garden America.
What are we going to talk about?
I don't know what we're going to talk about, John, but here we are. We are back live. It is Facebook Live. We'll figure something out. I'm Brian Main. Tiger had to leave, so it's John and myself for the rest of the show today, just about an hour and some change. And for those of you that are wondering, Leslie is still on our Facebook page if you do have any questions or comments. Correct, John?
Yeah, that was nice of Leslie to
Very
say
nice.
that she's going to follow along. And if you have any specific questions, if you're on Facebook, just post them. She'll be happy to answer them.
We talked tiny, John,
Yeah.
with Leslie.
Well,
but
you
again,
know,
you bring up a lot of good points regarding
I am motivated to try to find the Syningia we were talking about, Syningia pusilla. It's from a bulb, really, or a corm, or whatever those things are. The Syningia is the Latin name for, in the large size, what we refer to as gloxinias. You've probably seen gloxinias sold as florist plants a lot, and they need humidity, but they're bigger plants, and you wouldn't want them in a little tiny area. But this is so cute, Brian. You just want to hold it.
Just so cute.
I mean, the plant itself is about the size of a quarter, and then puts out blossoms. And they're gesneriads, so they're in the African violet family.
Wow.
And it's kind of hard to imagine, but if you Google Syningia pusilla, you can see what it is. Some of the hybrids that Leslie was talking about are a little larger, not quite as small as that, but I think one of the benefits the hybrids might have is they'll have a few more blooms. Syningia is it's such a little tiny plant, you're just happy when it does put out a bloom, but you won't see lots of flowers from it. But anyway, I'm kind of interested to...
Sparked your interest
Yeah.
this morning, right?
Yeah, and I really think you should try that. So,
Yeah, she's answering questions right now.
yeah,
as we
and
speak.
I think it's a good idea for people to go out and get the book. Leslie said if you go to her website, she's got some deals on those books. Again, it's the holidays are coming up. Great gift ideas.
Yeah, something a little bit different. Why not?
Yeah, books are always good ideas.
People still read.
If they haven't graduated recently, almost everybody
Almost
can read.
everybody. And they can. And if you haven't graduated recently, you can still write cursive.
There you go. Where you speak cursive, don't you? Or
Absolutely.
used
Of course I do. I speak. I'm a cursive guy from way back.
to. What's going on in your yard? You in the newsletter this week, we had a picture of your one
Hibiscus?
hibiscus again, and you never remember the name of that.
No, I don't. It's one of those things where I remember, then 2 minutes later, I'm like, what? What is that?
You know why? Because you don't have a lot of tags on your plants.
You know what's funny? You brought up a great point. The only
Yeah.
tag I have is on a rose that I never would even need a tag, and that's Green Planet. It's so obvious what it is.
Yeah.
For the most part, the roses have calmed down as far as blooming. We had lemon spice. Let's see, what else? I had Laura Bush was blooming. Pope John Paul was blooming. Everything's doing well. This is the time of the year where I can relax on watering.
Yeah. And you don't have to water as much. That's
That's
right.
what I'm saying. I say time of year. I'm talking last week or so.
Well, not only do the plants stay wetter because of the cooler weather, but also because of the day length.
Right. Days are getting shorter.
Yeah. Don't we go back in
Yeah, when-
another week or
When
so,
do we
right?
go back? Is it the first week of November?
It could be. Could be. It changes, but it's the time of year where I need to catch my breath.
Yeah.
After I have way too many pots.
Well, things will calm down for you after the rose auction next weekend, right? A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. there's a lot to do to get ready for that. And it's such a fun time. It's a great weekend. I would bring the family, really.
It's great because you're with people who share the same interest.
Yeah. We have one of the members of the the Coastal Rose Society, I think is about 11 or 12. And he comes and he helps set up the auction, and he's got jobs to do during the event.
And he's into roses?
Yeah.
Wow. That's great when young people have such an interest.
Well, we've talked about it before, but I started, I think my interest in roses goes back to my grandmother, both of my grandmothers really. But as a kid living in Detroit, the first thing we would do when we get to her house, and I'm talking like I'm 5 and 6 years old, probably 6 because I didn't know where I was until I was 6 years old.
Those first 6 years were...
Yeah, I didn't understand cause and effect.
Cause and effect, a little questionable. Your reality was much different between 0 or 1 and 6.
But we go over,
6.
and the first thing we do is she'd come outside, and we would walk the rose garden just along the side of her little Detroit lot. And all the roses that she had started from cuttings. And she would get a bouquet from somewhere. She would put the roses stick the cuttings in the ground, put a bottle over the top of them. They'd sit there all winter like a little cloche or greenhouse. And in the spring, she'd take it off and she'd have a rose bush under
However, as much as you know about roses, as involved as you are with roses, there was a time when somebody asked you if you even had roses or owned roses or grew roses, and you said no.
Well, that's because through my career, probably like Leslie, I've been interested in different areas of the plant world. And the only way I could wrap my head about it was to focus on one area at a time. So when I had houseplants, I liked gesneriads, things in the African violet
So you were not
family.
a multitasker in terms of growing plants. It was one or the other, right?
Like Leslie, I collected all kinds of plants, but I did have to focus on one area. I collected sansevierias, collected euphorbias. When we moved outdoors, I collected daylilies. And what you're referring to is probably about 25 years ago, I was the rose buyer for Armstrong Garden Centers. And one of their chief rosarians, Chris Greenwood, a good friend of ours, asked me what roses I had at home, and I said, "Oh, I don't have any roses." And he made the comment, "Gee, it's pretty sad that the rose buyer for Armstrong's doesn't even grow roses." He didn't say it mean, but it made me think, well, maybe it's time to move on to roses.
And that was it.
That was it.
But you knew going in, because of the knowledge, you knew what you wanted and the direction you wanted to go in, or not?
Well, I had to start at the bottom.
Right.
I had to, the first rose show I went to, you can enter roses in almost any rose show as a novice. You get your own category where you're not competing with the experts. And the first time you get a blue ribbon, it's really fun.
Hey, I think I can do this.
Yeah. And a lot of the shows now give cash prizes.
There you go.
Yeah, rather than trophies.
And if I'm not mistaken, you said if you're going to show a rose, or maybe even as it relates to the auction, you want it, at least 6 weeks to prepare?
It's too late now.
No, but I'm saying 6 weeks prior to whatever event.
Exhibitors usually cut their roses about 6 weeks prior to the event. And it depends on each variety. Each one's going to be a little bit different, but there's usually about 6 weeks from the time that you cut a rose until you get the next bloom.
Just working on the computer here.
All right. Let's see.
How are we doing? Are we caught up on the questions?
Oh, well, Gina just mentioned that which I didn't think of, but the vivarium idea or the little terrarium idea with the tiny plants, it's a good thing to do with your kids.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. Great idea.
Great teaching tool, and it's something they can get their hands around.
There's a lot of YouTubers that are into, obviously so many things, but in particular reptiles, snakes, so on and so forth, and even tarantulas, exotic spiders. and they get a kick out of making these YouTube videos and setting up their terrariums or setting up the environment. What kind of plants am I going to put in there? You know, do I need to spray for humidity? Should I put a rock here, a rock there? So there's a lot of how-to videos on YouTube if you decide to do something like that, be it an aquarium, a terrarium, or something, you know, some kind of an environment, you know, for your reptile or a particular animal that you want to raise.
I don't know how to delete things on our, maybe put height. There we go.
Yeah, we have some interesting comments sometimes on our page. Some you can read, some you can't.
Yeah.
You know, we're close to a break. Why don't we take a break here and get set the stage, I should say, for the next segment. Do stay with us. Tiger had to leave early this morning. So it's John Bagnasco, myself, Brian Main, here on Garden America. And again, those on Facebook Live, questions, comments, keep them coming as we take a break for our friends.
Good time for that. Questions.
Absolutely. And again, a break for our friends and these messages on Biz Talk Radio. Okay, just like that, we have returned. A very quick break on Facebook Live, a bit longer on Biz Talk Radio. Thank you for supporting our many sponsors and friends of the show. And a big thank you to Stephanie and her team at Biz Talk Radio, the network that keeps us on the air each and every week. John.
By the way, if you're in Southern California, I think that it's finally safe to go ahead and put in all your winter vegetables.
You think?
Yeah.
Are we safe?
It's not. I don't think we're going to have any near 100-degree temperatures.
No, I
like
think we're
we've
past
had.
that. It may be in the 80s here and there.
Right.
But that seems cool now.
Yeah.
If it's 85, it's like, oh, things are cooling off. It's nice. It's pleasant.
Yeah, 85 is not going to hurt those vegetables. It's just those dry 100-degree temperatures. So you can put in transplants of all the cole crops. And you know, Brian, cole crops are broccoli, cabbage.
Peas?
No. Broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Those are cole crops. Peas are legumes. And now is the time for peas.
Legumes.
Yeah. And then also, but not beans, which are also legumes. Beans are warm weather. Peas are cold
See
weather.
how you've confused everybody already? But it is the time for legumes. Peas.
No,
but
peas.
not beans. Peas, but not beans, is what you said. Because they're both legumes. Peas, but not beans.
No, I said they are both legumes,
Right.
but it's not the time to plant legumes, just peas,
Not beans.
not beans.
See what we did there? We came full circle.
While I usually respect you, sometimes I think you don't know beans.
And I like yanking your chain now and then.
You do.
We're caught up on the questions, correct?
I think so. I would just spend the rest of the show looking at Leslie's comments on here and learning more.
Yeah,
I would
right.
start putting in her comments, but
And it was so nice of her to stick around on Facebook
yeah,
to
it
answer
wouldn't make a
questions
very interesting show
from our
though, if
listeners.
we weren't talking and I was just going ahead and
Yeah.
reading that. But also going back to the vegetables that you can plant now that the cooler season's coming along, lettuces. And lettuces are great just about in any area because it's a quick crop. It doesn't take a long time. Along with lettuce, you would probably think spinach, and spinach is a cool weather crop. Good time for those too. Then radishes, of course. You can put radishes in when you get home, Brian.
And they'll be ready to go probably
30
next week,
days?
right? No, they're very fast growing.
They'll be up right away, yeah, but within 30 days you can eat them.
You know, these are all veggie pod ideas that you've talked about this morning. I grew a lot of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're right.
in my
Almost
veggie pod,
everything.
which
I don't know, maybe some of the
Tiger
cold
has
crops
now.
might not want cabbages. They can get pretty big.
When is the earliest date to plant bulbs for spring blooming in Southern California?
Usually you put those in November. Anywhere from late October, I would say, into December, but make sure that they've been refrigerated if they're the kinds of bulbs that need refrigeration. And those are usually Dutch bulbs. So tulips, hyacinths, crocus. Daffodils usually don't need chilling, but it's okay to do those if you want. But definitely tulips and hyacinths need the 6-week chill period in order to bloom really well in the spring.
Everything's always 6 weeks with you.
Yeah, I might be a title for an article sometime. 6 weeks.
Lenore, will my eggplants now flowering/grow?
I would say probably not, because they'll continue to grow until the first frost. She lives in canyon country.
Where it's very hot.
Yeah, and
then
then
very
can get
cold.
very cold.
Right.
So they may set some fruit, but I don't think there's going to be time for the fruit to mature because of the cool weather. You definitely don't want to plant things now like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash. And the sad thing is you can go into almost any home improvement center and you
they're
can
selling
see
them.
those available for
Yeah,
sale.
they're selling them right now.
Yeah,
Late
and
October,
there's
early November.
virtually no chance that those are going to produce for you.
So just be aware.
Yeah. My only comment to those stores is shame on you.
Really. It sounds like inventory that they're trying to get rid of.
No.
Really?
No,
So
they bring it in fresh every
seriously?
week. Yeah. It's a mindset that makes absolutely no sense to me. They tell their vendor, if you want to do business with us and you want to have and by they, I'm not mentioning any store specifically, but they say, if you want to do business with us and you want to sell plants in our store, you have to keep this area full all year round, even though we know that it's the wrong time to plant stuff. So what do you do if you're that if you're
do
that
it.
grower and
Right.
your biggest customer says, if you don't want the business, we'll give it to somebody else. You just got to go ahead and do it.
So buyer beware once again.
Exactly.
Okay, so Kevin, our buddy Kevin, are harmful insects less prevalent in the fall/winter in SoCal versus spring and summer?
Yes, they are.
Good question, Kevin.
Yeah. The coal crops we were talking about, the cabbages and things like that, get visited by cabbage moths. You know, they look like white butterflies
Right.
with the black dots on them. And you get larvae that go through and eat those things like crazy in warm weather. But they're not as prevalent in the cold weather. So that's one. And then some of the thrips and the things that like warmer weather you don't see in the cold weather.
Okay.
So you can still see aphids and things like that. Let's see. Carla says that I'm glad the weather's moderating because I've decided to redo our exotic grass strip. Nutsedge, Bermuda, St. Augustine to plant other things. I need the cooler weather to keep working on digging things up. Yeah, I get that out on. I'm continuing the planting of Polyantha Hill, and there's a lot of weeds that I have to dig out. And when the temperature's 94, you can't get out there and pull weeds. It's just
This is good weed pulling weather right now.
it's great weed pulling weather. Yeah, the only thing that would make it better would be if we would have a rain to soften
loosen
the
up the soil,
right?
pull
But
those
you can
roots
put
right out.
sprinklers on that area. Anyway, the speaking of good weed pulling weather, it's also good weed growing weather
Yeah.
because a lot of winter weeds are going to start coming up. The summer ones are gone. Things like purslane are drying up. If you have crabgrass, that's going to start drying up. But a lot of the grassy weeds, winter grasses, are going to start coming up, and then I'm trying to think. There's a few weeds in the winter that, along with wildflowers, are going to start coming up.
We're going to take a break. We'll continue our discussion. We have 2 more segments after this, so do stay with us. And again, plenty of time for your questions, your comments right there on our Facebook page. Brian Main along with John Bagnasco. Tiger is off for the rest of the show, and we'll take this break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Back after these messages. Do stay with us, and thank you again for tuning in to Garden America. Welcome back to the big show, as we say. Garden America, happy weekend. Hope you had a good week.
You and Ed.
You know, we should mention, too, at this stage of the game that we are going to be off next weekend.
Oh, we are, because it's
For the Rose Show.
Rose Show and auction.
Right, so do mark that down, that we're going to be off live next weekend. But, of course, plenty of places to watch previous shows. We archive our shows. You can go back to our Facebook page. You can also go to our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, Garden America Radio Show. But please, by all means, visit our website, gardenamerica.com. Make it a habit, gardenamerica.com. So still plenty of places to watch, listen to our podcast and various shows while we're away next weekend, John, for the Rose Show and auction.
Yeah, you can see us live next weekend if you come to Oceanside.
Yeah, we'll be there live.
Yeah.
We're not going to be pre-recorded live. We're going to be live.
And you're still going to be charging for autographs at that table?
Maybe not.
No?
Depends how I feel. I'm feeling very generous this year.
Really? Well, you're going to charge for selfies, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't blame you there.
When is the right time to cut back on peonies? And how do you know when the right time is?
You don't have to cut back peonies; they just freeze, and when they're dead,
That's it.
you just pull them out. And the roots come up in the spring, but all fall perennials, while they're green, they're still photosynthesizing, so they're building up their root systems for blooms in the spring. So if you go through and just wait till they turn brown, after that you can cut them back if
They
you
do
want.
it themselves, basically.
Right. Leslie mentioned that there were a lot of miniature peperomias, and we talked about the Syningia pusilla that I was fascinated with when I was in college, but another plant is Peperomia rotundifolia, and they're also known as button peperomia, and they're little round leaves that I would say maybe a quarter the size of a penny, and they grow on a little trailing plant that would be a great ground cover for a little terrarium with little buttons all over.
Yeah.
Or a little basket of small hanging basket maybe, or something coming over the sides. But she mentions there's a lot of miniature peperomias. I think that I'm going to have to, after the Rose Show, start looking into putting together one of these. Maybe you and I can put some orders in together
To get
these
the little ones?
little vivarium plants. Yeah.
I'd try it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Carol says that the next 5 weeks she'll be in Rome and Istanbul, and we'll try to listen. Fingers crossed. Well, you know what, Carol? I'm sure you can get us. Hopefully you've got a good Wi-Fi signal where you are, and you can figure out that time change.
She's going to be in Istanbul, not Constantinople, right?
There's no such thing as Constantinople anymore.
It used to be Istanbul.
It used to be,
Now
absolutely.
it's Constantinople. No, it's
No,
the
it's
other
the other way
around.
around. It's now Istanbul. No more Constantinople.
That song.
Too many vowels, that's why.
If you listen to that song, it just stays in your mind, and you can't.
Which song is that?
Oh, you don't know the song I'm talking about? You're going to have to look it up. There's a song that it's now Istanbul, not Constantinople. Istanbul, not Constantinople.
That sounds familiar.
And they repeat it over and over again. I think it's a song from the 30s, maybe.
And is there no longer Bombay?
It's Mumbai.
See?
Yeah.
Exactly. We're pretty good with our Indian history here.
I've noticed a lot of the territories that the British Empire had taken over and assigned, I guess, English-speaking names to have changed. Because I think the English might have thought, oh, that sounds like this.
Right.
And then when the English have less of an influence, they go, no, it's not Bombay, it's Mumbai.
It's Mumbai, yeah.
Yeah. Like Peking is now Beijing.
Say that again?
Peking
Right.
is Beijing. There's no Peking anymore. It's
That's right.
Beijing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to keep up on those name changes.
Oh my gosh, it's hard enough to keep binomial nomenclature up to date.
It's hard to say, too, isn't it?
Binomial nomenclature, yes. What was I thinking? Oh,
The nomenclature is that civilization that went extinct.
Linda up in Reading says she got 3 roses from the auction last year and that they're beautiful, healthy plants that are a great addition to her garden.
And still growing and doing well.
Yeah.
Those are good stories. People that purchase plants from the auction or the rose show, and a year later things are still going strong.
And it's kind of like the miniature plants, the tiny plants Leslie was talking about. They're not available just anywhere. You can't go to the floral department in Albertsons and find these. You know, you've got to go to some of these specialty nurseries online. And the same thing on these roses. The majority of the roses in the auction are not available commercially anywhere in the United States, except from some specialty nurseries, possibly.
Now, what are some of the rarest roses that'll be in the auction this year? Ones that come to your mind that if you bid on it, you might be the only person to even own it or have it in this country?
Well, I mentioned the Villa Borghese was going to be the first one, first time it's been offered in this country. So it'll be you and I, if you get that rose, will be the only 2 people in the country that have it. Oh, and part of the goal of the auction is to develop these roses, offer them, get them in a garden so more people will have them, right? So they don't disappear. So that's one. The rose Tiger and I were talking about, I think I'd have to check the name, but it is in the live auction, so it's one you'll be auctioning off, is one I've never seen before. I don't know how available it is, but I've never seen it bloom.
What's the name again?
Were you listening to me?
Yeah, but I want you to repeat it.
What I said was, I don't remember the name.
What was the name of it, though?
I can look it up.
I thought, it's funny. I thought maybe it would come to your mind.
You know what I used to do? What I used to do when I had an office job, I would ask my assistant something, and her response would usually be, "Well, here, let me Google that for you."
For you, yeah. Let me find that out for you.
If you think of something to talk about, I can look this up.
Oh, we gotta fill airtime.
Yeah.
This is one of the things they teach you in radio when things go a bit silent or the topic of conversation becomes a bit thin. You just learn how to fill time, so on and so forth. I can remind people to go to our website, gardenamerica.com. I can also remind people about our YouTube channel, Garden America Radio Show, but we do want you to visit our website as much as possible. It continually changes. You can also sign up for the newsletter on our website, which is gardenamerica.com.
And I did have someone, Marlis, I don't know if you're listening now, but you said for some reason you were not getting the newsletter the last 3 weeks. And I'll send you an email, but I think I fixed that. So she's getting hers.
Yeah, the newsletter is great, though, because it talks about upcoming guests, various articles that John writes. We also have guest appearances by other writers that are in the newsletter. You can send in pictures of what's growing in your garden. It comes out every Friday morning right there in your email, and it's a good thing to have and a good thing to keep handy.
Okay, the rose you asked me about is called Suzanne, Suzon. And that was the climbing rose that's a cross between Joseph's Coat and the Kiffskate rose. I'm trying to see if anyone in the United States has that listed in their garden. And one person in California has it. So another really rare plant.
So there you go. Part of what actually a big part of what the California Coastal Rose Society is all about in terms of, trying to save some of these endangered species or very rare roses. So a lot of responsibility, John, if somebody, in the auction wins one of these roses that is so rare. It's up to you now to propagate it if you can and take good care of it.
Especially if it's the only one in the United States. If you kill it,
pressure's on.
I've had that happen several times now. And
really?
Yeah.
It just kills you, right?
It still hurts my heart a little bit when I think about it.
Because it was right there. We had it. It'd
be like if you were holding the last passenger pigeon in the Cincinnati Zoo. Martha was the name of the last passenger pigeon. And
no more.
Nope.
No more passenger pigeons.
They are trying to bring them back, though.
They're trying to bring back a lot of species.
Yeah. I don't know if they can do that, though, because you used to have millions of those in a flock.
Oh, they would blot out the sun.
Yeah, and their main food source, or one of their main food sources, the American chestnuts, gone.
We're going to take a break. We've got one more segment coming up. Still plenty of time for your questions, your comments right there on our Facebook page. So do stay with us. Those on Biz Talk Radio, thank you so much for tuning in to last week's show. Along with Brian Main, along with John Bagnasco. I'm Brian Main. Tiger's off for the rest of the show. We're going to take our last break, coming back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. Okay, we are back. We have returned here on Biz Talk Radio, also Facebook Live. Thank you for tuning in this morning. I want to thank Leslie once again for a great topic, great interview this morning, talking about tiny plants and things that you can do, and she gave us some great ideas this morning, John.
Yeah, I thought that the topic was going to be about landscaping tiny homes with tiny plants, but
tiny houses.
Yeah, tiny houses. Some of those are really ingenious, but I don't think I could live in one of those.
I think if you lived in a regular house and had one of those as kind of a little weekend getaway, that'd be all right.
Or you had it in the backyard.
Yeah.
You had a fight with your significant other and you just wanted to
be a
go
nice
out.
Guest house.
Right.
Something small, tiny.
Or even to prevent a fight. Just say, you know what? We're getting to the point. Why don't you just go live out there for a few days?
Yeah, Carla's got a question for you.
She does?
John, is it snow cone or snow cone rose? And the way she spelled it, I believe that's her question.
Yes,
snow cone is two different words, or snow cone is one word?
One word.
One word, Carla.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. There was, Linda and Redding wanted to know if now's the time to put out seeds for California poppies. Yeah, you could go ahead and do it now. Usually you just spread those out in November. They don't germinate till it begins to rain. So now would be a good time to do that. You can usually find California wildflower mixes, and they'll have California poppies, the African daisies, and those types of things in them.
So there you go.
Yep. You don't have an area for a meadow at your house.
No, there's no place for me to frolic.
I have a rose called Frolic. You could do that.
I could frolic with the frolic.
I was trying to think. Oh, who was it? Carol in Tucson said she's going to be in Rome, in Istanbul, when we started talking about the song.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in Rome, there is a botanic garden that you should visit.
Which we did not visit when we were there, did we?
I did when I was there. And I'm trying to think if that was the same. I think you were there at that time. Maybe you didn't go. I remember some of the trees in that garden were just, like there was a sycamore that was 500 years old.
Well, we saw an olive tree that was like 2,000 years old or 1,000 years old.
I think they were 1,000-year-old olives.
By the aqueduct, the Roman aqueduct in France.
That was in France,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
No, this was in Rome. So anyway, I would definitely try to get to their botanic garden. It was interesting. I'm ready to go back to Italy, I think.
Are you?
Yeah.
Would you go someplace different? I like Italy.
There's parts of Italy we haven't been to.
Well, southern Italy.
Yeah, southern Italy, the
Pompeii area, which is southern Italy, Sicily, that area.
The Amalfi Coast,
right?
Cinque Terre.
That would be fun.
I know you would really like Pompeii.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe some of the islands, right?
I would also enjoy Herculaneum.
It's right nearby.
It doesn't get enough publicity. I mean, it was buried as well during that same eruption.
Pompeii's easier to say.
Herculaneum, Pompeii.
Yeah. And you got there's no Herculaneum olive oil, though, but there is Pompeii olive oil.
Yeah. No, that's very intriguing. A lot of history there, and just a wonderful place to visit as they continue to excavate.
Istanbul is interesting, too, because I know people have been there. I think it's not the safest place to visit now either, so you want to be careful.
A little sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from what at least the people I've talked to, especially if you're a woman, you probably don't want to go around without an escort or someone with you, just to be safe. But anyway, a lot of tulips come from there, and I think they have one of the world's largest tulip festivals in the spring. Usually you think of Holland, right?
Right, absolutely.
And you don't
really?
think of, yeah.
You're talking Istanbul?
Yeah, not Constantinople.
Not Constantinople, not Bombay.
Right. So, yeah, a lot of the Dutch bulbs actually come from that area. So, it would be kind of nice to visit someday. I think it would be
Maybe.
fun. Maybe.
I'm thinking more southern Italy now that we've talked about that.
Yeah. Well, you got Sicily too.
Yeah.
All of Sicily, and then Corsica and Sardinia, Capri.
So
the Isle of
what
Capri.
happens in terms of any kind of festivals or flower festivals or whatever in Greece? Is that a place that you would normally go to? Anything that comes to your mind as far as any events they have there?
I'm not that familiar with Greece, so I don't know about. I know about ancient Greece, but I don't know anything
Right.
about.
Well, then you're a big Mars
Horticulture
Hill
over
guy, aren't you?
It's not Mars. Mars is the Roman god,
But Mars Hill.
right?
That was the
Right.
speech that Paul gave in Greece, right?
Right, but I'm just saying that Mars is actually a Roman god, and I'm trying to think the Greek equivalent is, who's the god of war? Would it be not Achilles? I don't know, one of those. They all had different names when
Sure.
they moved from Greece over to Rome, right?
Yeah. You've never been to Greece, have you?
No,
Yeah. See, that would be another. I just think it would be very interesting.
I like I thought it was interesting, the one trip we were talking about possibly taking to the Azores. And
Right,
then,
which is just off Portugal, right?
right. And then we would go from there to Lisbon,
Mm-hmm.
maybe into Spain, but I don't know. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, the Azores.
Yeah.
Plenty happening on the Azores. Hey, we're just about ready to wrap things up, John. Anything last minute? We do want to maybe mention again next weekend, those in San Diego, those that want to bid, I should say, for the California Coastal Rose Society happening next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, right?
Yep. And then Lila says Aries.
Aries, very
was the
good.
god of
Yeah,
war.
that was it. Thank you very much.
Yes, we appreciate that. And Carol says she loves the suggestion about the botanical garden in Rome. And she said by the way, I have a gardening job at our hotel in Istanbul, and I go out myself, just not at night.
There you go. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for joining us, tuning into today's show.
See you
Again,
live in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. We are off next week as we get involved with the California Coastal Rose Society auction. So again, Tiger Palafox, myself, Brian Main, John Bagnasco, we are back in 2 weeks. Feel free to go to it's our website, John, right? GardenAmerica.com. Go to our YouTube channel, Garden America Radio Show. You can watch and catch up on any previous shows. For the entire crew, I'm Brian Main, along with John Bagnasco, and for our good buddy Tiger Palafox, thank you for joining us. Have a safe weekend and a safe week up ahead. We'll see you back in 2 weeks here on Garden America. Take care.